Call to order a public hearing pertaining to an annexation agreement applied to 36 plus or minus acres at the northwest corner of Towanda Avenue and Beach Street, referred to as the Carden Springs PUD. Please call the roll.
Mayor Coos?
Here?
Mrs. Lorenz?
Here.
Ms. Harris?
Here.
Mr. Byers?
Here.
Ms. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Preston?
Here.
Mr. McCarthy?
Here.
Is there anyone here wishing to speak pertaining to annexation an agreement of 36 plus or minus acres at the northwest corner of Towanda Avenue and Beach Street, which I'm going to refer to as the Carden Springs PUD? Is there anyone here wishing to speak pertaining to an annexation agreement pertaining to the Carden Springs PUD? And third and final time, is there anyone here wishing to speak pertaining to the annexation agreement pertaining to the Carden Springs PUD? Motion for
So moved.
adjournment.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Ms. Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Byers?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mayor Coos?
Aye. We are adjourned, and we will re-adjourn in 56 seconds. Not re-adjourn. Convene. Call to order a meeting for the normal town council for October 7, 2024. Please call the roll.
Mayor Coos?
Here?
Mrs. Lorenz?
Here.
Ms. Harris?
Here.
Mr. Byers?
Here.
Ms. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Preston?
Here.
Mr. McCarthy?
Here.
We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. We have no public comment at the beginning of the meeting. We do have some commenters that wish to speak at the tail end of the meeting. So we'll move to the omnibus agenda items that will be taken with one vote, unless a council member would like to pull an item for discussion. Ms. Smith.
Yes, I'd like to pull item D as in dog and G as in George.
Ms. Lorenz.
I would like to pull item J and K, the last two items.
Move approval.
Second.
Items considered under omnibus tonight are the approval of the minutes of the regular council meeting of September 16th, 2024. A report to receive and file town of normal expenditures for payment as of October 2nd, 2024. A resolution to accept water treatment plant chemical bids from November 2024 through October 2025. A resolution to purchase right-of-way for sidewalk improvements at the intersection of Fort Jesse Road and Greenbrier Drive. A resolution amending the employment agreement of the municipal manager. A resolution waiving the formal bidding process and accepting a quote and authorizing the execution of a one-year contract with Flock Safety for $68,600 to purchase automatic license plate reader cameras, Flock safety cameras, and Flock operating system, and that's done with funds awarded through the State of Illinois Attorney General's Organized Retail Crime Grant. A resolution authorizing the renewal of the employee group health, dental, life, AD&D, and Medicare Advantage insurance programs. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Lorenz,
Aye.
Ms. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Byers,
Aye.
Ms. Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Preston,
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy,
Aye.
Mayor Kus.
Aye, those items are approved. Item D is a resolution to accept bids and authorize a contract with Stark Excavating Incorporated for the Constitution Trail Drainage Improvements Project in the amount of $110,900.50. Ms. Lorenz, I'm sorry, Ms. Smith.
Move for approval.
Second.
Thank you. Ms. Smith.
I pulled this agenda item because I just wanted the record to provide a little more detail in that this is a section of Constitution Trail in a neighborhood that has generated some ongoing concerns from the residents, and I wanted them to note that this project is scheduled to start as soon as this contract is awarded, and then the contractor then can begin the work, and the estimated time is 3 months. But in the process, there may be some mud, and if I could ask the city manager to go into that in a little detail, trying to just lay a little groundwork in advance.
Sure. This project, we've been talking about it. Initially, it required some acquisition of the property. And then obviously, we're finally to the bidding stage. So this project will take approximately 90 days for construction. We expect work to commence as soon as possible. And then seeding of the newly renovated area will be occurring in the spring. So the project won't be done until 2025. However, it does require installation of storm sewer pipe in the ground, which means digging, dirt. There will be inconvenience. If we have, rain in the fall, there will be mud. But the contractor will do their best to get the work completed expeditiously. And then by summer of '25, things should be much, much better.
Thank you.
I'll just add, over the years, talking to residents along that piece of property, they're going to be more than happy to put up with a little bit of mud to get this project completed. Please call the roll.
Ms. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Byers,
Aye.
Ms. Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Preston,
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy,
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz,
Aye.
Mayor Kus.
Aye, that resolution is approved. Item G is a resolution to accept bids and award a contract to Champaign Signal and Lighting Company, a division of Champaign Asphalt Company LLC, for the Rab Road Fiber Optic and Traffic Signal Interconnect Project in the amount of $992,554.50. Ms. Smith.
Move for approval.
Second.
Ms. Smith?
Again, I pulled this item for some clarifications and a little expanding on what was in the packet, because as an accountant, I always like to have ratios and numbers, and when I inquired, I was told that this is actually an expanse of 3.5 miles of roadway, which will have this cable implemented, and the additional feedback from the city manager when I reached out to her was providing me some information. I was not aware of how much interconnectivity we have elsewhere in our community and the desire to connect to the state highways. Have I got all that right?
Yes, this will help and get us to the connectivity area of Main Street and Rab Road, tying in with IDOT. And then also will interconnect all of our signals in this corridor and be prepared for future traffic signals.
That's all I needed. Thank you.
Interesting.
Further? Please call the roll.
Mr. Byers,
Aye.
Ms. Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Preston,
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy,
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz,
Aye.
Ms. Harris,
Aye.
Mayor Kus.
Aye. That item is approved. Item J is a resolution authorizing an agreement with Lumen Technologies Incorporated to relocate telecommunications facilities for the construction of the underpass project at Uptown Station, and that is in the amount of $833,700. $16.62.
So moved, please.
Second.
Ms. Lorenz.
Thank you. So I've pulled this item, and consequently, you'll see the next one too, both for similar reasons. This one, staying focused on J, is part of the project for the underpass. And this is a good project. It's, I think, deserving of some time and attention in that regard. And so I just thought I would ask a few questions, and for those who might be interested in learning more about it, we can have a little dialogue about it up here. So just maybe a couple, 2, 3 questions. First, confirming that this is in fact part of the budgeted total amount for the total underpass project, yes?
Yes, the budget did include funds for relocation of utilities.
Okay. And similar to the question that was raised on the previous item, what kind of timeline do we expect for this? When it will start and how long?
I'm going to ask Mr. Otto that question. I don't believe we included that in the report, so I'm sorry about that. I didn't think to check.
For Lumen Technologies, we hope they'll start very soon. We don't have a completion date in there, but they've indicated they will begin very soon. For Cogent, the next item, item K,
Good,
they have
thanks.
133 days is what
Okay.
they're saying. But we hope they deliver much faster. I think they gave themselves some leeway in the project schedule.
Okay, and maybe along the same lines, you can answer, what kind of impact will that have for traffic, if any, for either of the items, if we can go there?
Yeah, it's a good question. There should be very little impact to the traveling public. These items will be bored in place, so there'll be trenchless technology used to bore a fiber conduit line on both the north and south side. Cogent is on the north side and Lumen is on the south side, so we would expect very little, if any, traffic impacts in the downtown or uptown area.
Okay, great. That's all really I had. Like I said, this is a great project, probably once in a few decade project. So it's great to see it starting. And I know from time to time, folks have asked me, when are we going to get started? So I actually we can say it's starting. It's just maybe a little bit more of the quiet phase right now.
Yes.
So very good. Thanks.
Mr. Otto, just a quick question. How much in those timelines is there overlap that both contractors would be on site at the same time? Or would they?
There is a possibility they would be on site at the same time. Because they are located on different sides of the tracks, we don't anticipate issues there. So, but there is a possibility they could both be on site at the same time.
Thank you. Further on the item?
Not for me.
Please call the roll.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Ms. Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Byers?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye, that resolution is approved. Item K is a resolution authorizing an agreement with Sprint Communications Company, LP, in care of Cogent Communications LLC to relocate telecommunication facilities for the construction of the underpass project in the amount of $1,048,388.56.
So moved.
Second.
I have no further question.
I kind of thought that's where we'd go. Please call the roll.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Ms. Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Byers?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye, that resolution is approved and concludes our omnibus agenda. We have one matter of general orders tonight. That is a resolution amending the annexation agreement pertaining to 36 plus or minus acres at the northwest corner of Towanda Avenue and Beach Street. Again, the Carden Springs PUD.
Move approval. Second.
Thank you. Ms. Reese.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I will introduce this topic, and staff will be prepared to answer any questions council may have. This action item this evening amends the original annexation agreement that we had with Fair Lawn Properties for the development of Carden Springs PUD. As council knows, we've had a number of housing studies. We've had numerous conversations in recent months and year and a half or so regarding the need for additional housing. In this particular instance, the developer came to staff to discuss what hurdles, I guess for lack of a better term, might be in the way to get their project going. Council might recall this development is R3 apartment units, and in conversations with the developer, we reached agreement on a public-private partnership to get this moving forward. And I think it's a good story in terms of us working together to find a solution in terms of developing more housing opportunities. And with council's support of this proposed annexation agreement amendment, the developer will be positioned to move forward with their project. And one thing I do want to point out, it is identified in the council report, but there are performance requirements that the developer must meet in terms of certificate of occupancy. And when the developer meets their obligations, the town is agreeing to waive the building and development permit fee requirements. And then we are willing to take on 2 public investment obligations that originally had been the developer's obligation. That would be the construction of the left turn lane on northbound Towanda Avenue at Beach and future construction of the Constitution Trail extension right along Towanda Avenue from Beach up to the basically detention basin area. So those are the 3 changes really in terms of the annexation agreement, the waiving of the permit fees and development fees, and the 2 public investment, capital investments. So with that, certainly staff is prepared to answer any questions council may have, and we recommend council approval.
Ms. Smith? Ms. Smith and then Mr. Preston.
For those not familiar with the timing of various buildings, what does the certificate of occupancy actually then allow the builder and/or the purchaser of the unit to do?
Well, I'm not sure about purchaser of a unit. These would be rental units. So what the construction, the agreement requires that the first building must have a certificate of occupancy and be completed by October 1, 2025. So 12 months to get the first building ready for occupancy.
Okay, so the certificate of occupancy is an indication that it is move-in ready for them to begin accepting tenants.
Correct.
So we actually have housing that we've been struggling to get online.
That is correct. And then the entire development must be completed by December of 2028.
Okay. I did see those time limits, and I'm happy to see that there is a requirement for meeting some deadlines in order to get this housing stock into circulation. Thank you.
Mr. Preston?
Thanks. I would start off by highlighting the importance, as Ms. Smith did too, of additional housing units. I think it is a surprise to no one that housing has become kind of a crisis in a lot of places nationally, but certainly especially here in Bloomington Normal, Rivian being perhaps the largest driver of our regional problem. There have been a number of developments that have come to us from council that are proposed, have passed this body in this process, and then have yet to break ground. I believe this Carden Springs is the largest of which, and these 500 units are certainly needed. But does staff plan to, or have there been conversations on presenting a more of a kind of unified or standard approach to residential developments that are having the same issues that these guys are? If, we're willing to waive X, Y, and Z of, fees here, willing to take on the infrastructure cost of the turn lane and the trail, is that something that you would anticipate as a precedence that staff is likely to continue with some others that may be in similar situations, or what's the thought process?
We have had conversations with multiple developers, many of whom have been before council. Some projects have already been approved by council. Every developer is facing different challenges because of what their project entails. Some are just initial construction financing, some pertain to the public investment costs of the developer obligations and the like. So we've had conversations with many of them, if not all of them, to find out what are the holdups in getting their projects underway. Staff believes that each project, because each project is unique and each developer faces different challenges regarding equity investors, cost of interest rate and borrowing costs, cost of infrastructure investment, the public infrastructure requirements, that addressing each on a case-by-case basis seems to be the most appropriate, because we might be able to do something different for a different developer. And so it's challenging to say in every situation we'll offer a package of A, B, or C when each project is different. Some projects that have been before council, or at least concepts that I've shared with council, might relate to income qualified tenants and getting LIHTC and tax credit financing is a whole different challenge because of timing. And those investors or those projects might not know until sometime in 2025 if they even qualify. So each project has different hurdles.
Yeah, thanks.
Mr. McCarthy?
Thank you. Like some comments already mentioned, I guess not really a question, but more comment and thought. I appreciate that we're trying to answer the community call to get new housing on the market, and I appreciate that we're trying to be creative in how to do that. What I was particularly interested in or grateful to see in the incentive package is, as Ms. Smith mentioned, that there's a performance clause here, and that if the developer doesn't perform and bring housing online, then the incentive is made whole back to the community. And I think we've done that in some other cases. Certainly in Rivian's case, we approached it that way. And on the topic of greater and more potential incentives, I'd like to see us stay in that vein, that we're happy to help if we can, but that the developers have to perform and has to bring and commit to getting housing online. And if not, that the community is made whole for that investment in their project. So anyway, I appreciate being creative and that looking forward to 1 year from now having a new building open and some more housing for our community. Thanks.
Ms. Lorenz?
I want to pick up on kind of a line of thinking that Mr. Preston raised a moment ago about setting a precedence and the potential danger that can bring up. I know that there is, because I've asked this question in the past, can we come up with a menu of potential criteria and incentives for various projects? And the answer was given as just a few moments ago, that each project is unique. While I am in support of this project, because I think it does get it going, I am not in support of playing this as it goes. In this case, I think the developer knew the right questions to ask. What about the developer that perhaps doesn't know all the correct questions to ask at the right time? And have we inadvertently delayed some of those projects and therefore delayed getting housing online sooner, perhaps even at a more affordable level, by simply waiting for the developers to ask the right questions? And I, for one, would like for us to take a more proactive approach and come up with a menu that could be selected from based on the needs of the unique nature of various projects and be more proactive and intentional with our direction. In our previous conversation about this, in terms of a study session about it with our city manager, I did ask for this idea of a menu of options, and I'm still asking for it. So while I do agree with this one, I do think that as a council, we should advocate for a more proactive approach. So that's my comment. My question would be, now that we are assisting with this particular project, will there be some relief in terms of the lower range of rental? By virtue of the fact that we're coming in with about $1 million worth of incentives, does that allow the project to permit rental levels that might be more workforce housing affordable?
Two comments. In terms of this, whether or not this particular public-private partnership to get the development going allows the developer to change their rental rates, I believe the answer is no, although the developer is not here this evening. So I'm pretty confident that, well, since we didn't specifically say and didn't request that their market of tenant change in order to drive a public-private partnership, I don't believe they're looking for changing their market, if that makes sense. They would have had different numbers in their pro forma and a larger gap to fill had we changed who their market tenant was for. I guess I can defer to Mr. Day or even Mr. Duffel to see if they have any additional comments about that, but that would be my understanding in this particular situation, that the PUD was approved, they're not changing their plan. This was the challenge that they ran into to get their plan to the finish line. On the other comment regarding being proactive, staff has spoken with every developer whose project council has approved and inquired on what is keeping their project from being constructed. And every developer has had different challenges. So we can say, and very publicly have said to the developers, because this particular topic of fee waivers and public-private partnerships have been public discussions, even in conversations with realtors and developers and our other public partners like City of Bloomington. And so we've followed up with developers, and each one has indicated what their challenges are. And to do something like we're doing today is not enough to bring some of those other projects to the finish line. So we're aware of what their challenges are. We're not always able to fill the gap in their pro forma to make their project make sense. Mr. Day, do you have any comments regarding this particular project and changing their scope of who their targeted tenant is?
Right. No, Mrs. Reese, absolutely correct that this plan was based on their market rate pro forma. So in order for them to be able to pencil out their project and attract the lenders that they need to get this built, they have to make back a certain income, and that's going to be based on market rate. So if they were looking at getting something below that market rate, then they'd need a much larger package than what's on the table in front of you.
Remind me again what their market rates are.
It's,
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have that information.
Do we think it's, well, I guess, don't want to hazard to guess. It's kind of important information to have
Well,
at the table.
yes, I don't disagree. I guess, council approved the PUD with the understanding this was market rate, and certainly we have a shortage of all types of housing. So our goal is to try to get other projects as well to the finish line. If we can figure out things that would work for other developers, we will bring them to you and propose solutions. We're not proposing any significant change in terms of the market or the actual project of the Carden Springs PUD. We're simply asking council to authorize an amendment of the fee structure and then the public investment. So I'm sorry, I don't have information about their actual market rate.
Further on this item? Mr. McCarthy?
Thanks. Since we've been involved in any development projects, I haven't known us to try to manipulate the rent of any projects. But I think the hope is that if we help spark new units and that continues to grow, the shortfall or the limited supply of housing will dwindle and they'll be more competitive in the marketplace. But that's got to start with getting started somewhere. And I'm okay with this. When we approved it as a market rate, we all knew this project wasn't aiming to be an affordable type of project when we did it. And I'm okay with it staying where it is, but I am hopeful that if we can continue to help developers that have projects approved by us but are not moving ground, that we can figure out how to help them to move. And I know staff is working hard to talk with them and provide incentives where we can. That's why I said I'm appreciative that we're being creative in this case. But I think the rate problem in part is a project that aims to do some of the things that the LIHTC financing that you mentioned earlier, Mr. Reese, and by a simple supply problem. We've got a large supply problem here, and we all know what's going on in the rental market here. Lower quality rental units going for very large monthly fees, unfortunately. So I'm hopeful that as we start to build, we can help solve that problem. Thanks.
Yeah, I'll just add on to that, the fact, and Ms. Reese did bring that point up, that, this project compared to a income qualified or age qualified project using LIHTC dollars and new market tax credits is a completely different process. The two processes are completely different. So it's very, very hard to say, if you come and build, we're going to give you X, because they may not need X, they may need Y, or they may need time. So I think just to reinforce what you said, Ms. Reese, is they can be very unique projects. Further on this item?
I do have a follow-up, if I may, unless anybody else has anything. Fair points made. Not looking to manipulate any rents. I would say that we do need to be mindful that we are proactive in attracting developers that want to meet all aspects of price points, and whether that's low-income tax credit type projects, whether that's more mid-range, say $1,500, $1,700, believe it or not, that's mid-range, or something a little more on the higher end, which my memory serves, these are to be north of $2,000 per month. We need an array of choices, and we need to position ourselves out there in the market saying that we need an array of choices. And that's what I'm really looking for us to provide some leadership on, perhaps even borrowing ideas from other cities in the region that maybe have done similar type projects, and really just trying to position ourselves so that we attract the right kind of projects, and our menu of items wouldn't be so prescriptive as if this, then that. It would be multifaceted that could be selected from as a menu of choices. So that's what I am looking for. That's what I've been advocating for, even at some of our private conversations, and I wanted to bring that to light today. But last point, I don't want to stand in the way of getting this project completed. So kudos to the developer for asking the right questions, and thank you to staff for finding a way to get the project across the finish line.
Just to give some reassurance, there are multiple types of projects like that. Staff is talking with the developers that are doing different projects. They're exploring our market. But again, to do a project, say, using LIHTC and new market tax credits, it's a different timeline to get government approval and funding on that. So there actually is one developer I know of in this community looking at that so that they can meet the federal government timelines to get those projects done. So there are multiple projects in the community, and for a lot of reasons everyone here tonight has stated, sometimes they get stalled, sometimes they just don't happen, but there is interest and there is work being done in the development query world, I would say. Please call the roll.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Ms. Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Byers?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mayor Coos?
Aye. That resolution is approved. We have no new business tonight. We do have 3 public commenters who would like to speak to council tonight. Just to briefly go over our rules of public comment. When you come forward to speak, we ask that you state your name for the record, and that you keep your comments to 3 minutes. We are pretty firm on that, so try to keep your comments to 3 minutes. And our first speaker is Gene Olson. You can just come up, and probably the center chair is the best one to take. I think all the microphones are on.
I'm Jean Olson. I appreciate everything that you've done for our community and appreciate the chance to speak here. I'm a little overwhelmed. I've lived here since coming to college at age 17, and I've lived in my house at 709 North School Street for almost 40 years. I love my neighborhood. Kathleen, you were recently at our neighborhood at one of our Friday night get-togethers, which I now realize provides an excellent opportunity for thieves and bad actors to know that the most of the neighborhood is all busy at one person's house. I am now afraid of where I live because an Airbnb has opened next door. That hurts you, but it hurts me more. It hurts you because you're not going to get any of the tax revenue. It hurts you because sooner or later there's going to be a problem. What just happened at the homecoming is devastating, and it was 4 blocks from my house. The people do not live. The people that run the Airbnb do not live there. It is totally unsupervised. There is absolutely no security. They offer free liquor. Get that in your heads. They say that only 8 people can stay there at a time, but that certainly violates our neighborhood policy of 1 non-related member in a household. They have frightened me. There's been 3 or 4 cars there at a time. They left a bonfire burning. They provide liquor. They don't have a liquor license. They don't have a hotel license. They got to know they're breaking the law. If you allow this to happen, our neighborhood will deteriorate. I've done enough research to know that Airbnbs are bad news for neighborhoods, and we are a lovely historic neighborhood. I mean, if you tell me that I can't fix my porch without your approval, how can a person move in next door, allow 8 unrelated people to come and go however they wish, not supervise them, provide alcohol with absolutely no security? I have seen many cars parked. I have photographs of the bonfire that's unattended. There's been times when it's been difficult for me to get out. We live on an alley. My only access is the alley. And there's 3 cars parked there. It's a little bit difficult to get our pickup out. It's a bad venture. This is not someone that cares about our neighborhood, or they would have spoken to us and they wouldn't be selling liquor. I have some data. I know it's hard to regulate this, but I can give you a list of the cities in Normal that have been able to do that. I wonder if you guys have questions. Have I done 3 minutes?
We generally don't, yes. You got 14, 13.
Well, I'm used to
We
teaching,
generally
man.
generally don't have a dialogue. We just want to hear your
Okay.
concerns.
Well, I want to know that we want you to know that as a therapist at the ISU Student Counseling Services for many years, I've seen what can happen with pop-up parties. And I am not happy about this. I don't know what we're going to do, but it has already disrupted our lives. I don't want an Airbnb. It's a hotel room. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next commenter is Tom Collins.
Thank you for this opportunity. You know, again, Gene Olson's my wife. We live next door to an Airbnb. Now, Naperville banned short-term rentals. Schiller Park banned short-term rentals in residential zone. Oak Park Terrace banned. If you go across the nation, you will find city after city banning Airbnbs. There was a study done in Northeastern that linked Airbnbs with crime. Crime goes up. I was a prison psychologist for 25 years at Pontiac Correctional Center. I knew all the gang leaders. They have a ton of money. They like to have their meetings outside of Chicago because if the disciples are having a meeting and the vice lords find out, then all hell breaks loose. So they get out of Chicago. Airbnbs are the kind of thing that they love to have. Our residential code prohibits businesses, okay? Now, Illinois, the state of Illinois recognizes Airbnbs as a business. The IRS recognizes Airbnbs as a business. So they are breaking the residential code. And the council needs to deal with this. Either you're going to enforce codes or you're not. But, you know, the decision has to come from you. You can say, oh, they're already established. Well, Airbnb 101 says you go and you look at the zoning before you commit. Well, they didn't do this. If they would have looked at the zoning, they would have known that a business cannot be in a residential district. So we are asking the council to make moves to control this. There could have been a family living there. You talk about housing. Well, there could have been a family there. There's not a family there. That's a hotel. That's a motel right next to us. It lowers the value of our house, estimated between 3 and 10% because of the, you know, this. So we are losing tens of thousands of dollars in retail because of this Airbnb. Thank you very much. And again, thank you for letting us speak.
Our final speaker this evening is Renee Bradley.
All righty. Hi, everybody. Thank you for the 3 minutes. My name is Renee Bradley. I live at 1303 North Walnut Street. I'm here to talk about the weekend events in our neighborhood near One Normal Plaza. There are really two issues here. First, the Tiger games in general. There are hundreds of people at these events. Several levels of players, several levels of cheerleaders, all the parents and the spectators. and the opposing team. They park everywhere and it's chaotic, even at practices. There appears to be no security or very little, if any, police patrol, because after all, it's just kiddie football, right? We need help taking back our neighborhood, at the very least, to settle the parking issues. That was until this weekend. But when they start firing guns, it's no longer a kiddie football game. So let's move on to the weekend shooting. Some are saying it's not the Tigers, and that may or may not be true. It's only been 2 days. But without them, we'd have 0 neighborhood shootings. So what do we do about it? I've heard no remarks from anyone here. I did contact Mrs. Lorenz and Mr. Preston, and I have to say, within minutes, they were responsive, very responsive. But our neighborhood, but that's just me, our neighborhoods heard nothing. I realize that we're early on into this police investigation, and no one wants to compromise that. But I can tell you, our neighborhood needs to hear something. I realize we're fresh off last weekend's shootings, but we love to see you walking our neighborhood and offering a few words regarding our safety. If it turns out to be the sole fault of the Springfield team, which is, one thing people are saying, you have the power to say, you don't get to play in Normal anymore. That seems like a simple cause and effect to me. Should it be found that they are Tiger-affiliated people, then there needs to be real consequences. And it would be great to see our children learning a lesson, even if it's a difficult one. So please, come to our neighborhood, walk around. It's a very dog-friendly neighborhood. Everybody's out walking their dogs. Come, reassure, say something in the media, but we've heard nothing. We're past day 2 of this. We don't need strong admonishments. We don't need a firm stance. We need this to be investigated, as I assume it is. We need reassurance that we still have a safe neighborhood. Thank you.
Before taking a motion for adjournment, are there council comments? Go ahead, Ms. Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. I know usually we don't respond, but I do feel a need to say something. I actually go to the Tiger games. I have someone who I know that plays for the Tigers. I live around the corner from the field on One Normal Plaza. And so I'm commenting because those who contacted me, who knows I'm normally there, the coaches who know me, let me know, and I have had conversations with them. I am one person, and that's also my community as well. What I don't like is when I'm being admonished in a position of not caring for where I live. It's one thing if I didn't live there, but I literally can walk out my door, up the street, and right over to One Normal Plaza. I don't have to drive. Sometimes I choose to drive. So that was literally in my backyard. And so, yes, there is an impact, but I'm going to allow our staff to do their job. And for those who have reached out to me about their concern, I have spoken to them. There's some other things going on as well across the community that we're all trying to deal with and address. But again, I allow staff to do their job first. I am not the expert in that. I'm the expert to make sure that the people that I know and that I care about and that I love left that game safe. I appreciate those who were helpful in that situation. I appreciate the community who was there, who acted like community, and those who even served to some people as heroes for that day. So I thank those. But I would like for people to be mindful that a lot of us are integrated very much in this community. And it's ironic that this was was one of the few games that I've missed. Thank you.
Mr. McCarthy.
Again, yeah, I agree we don't normally, but these are some pretty unprecedented things going on in our community. My wife had happened to be at the park at the time, so we're all not immune for what's going on. All I can say up here is, and I don't know great detail because the police department is doing what the police department does, which is investigating appropriately. And I know the mayor or city manager and the police will make comments when we have things to share, but rest assured that the police are involved and the police were on site, as I'm sure you're well aware, and they are investigating. On a completely different note, on a completely different tone, I just wanted to publicly wish Councilman Byers good luck this weekend as he takes on the Chicago Marathon, his very first marathon ever. And so Sunday he will be in great physical effort and hopefully not much physical pain. So good luck, Mr. Byers.
And I would add, Mr. Byers, I hope we don't have what is the more normal Chicago Marathon weather, which can be a little challenging. Further comments? Ms. Lawrence?
Lots of things going on in our community, right? So appreciate the comments from our citizens, appreciate some of the responses on the need for public safety being paramount, and earlier discussion on the need for more housing. Particularly, we were talking about market level or at least workforce level housing. So I want to raise another issue that maybe is somehow intersects with both of those, and that is in about 8 or 9 days, the tent encampment in our, and I'm going to say in our community of Bloomington Normal, that is in actually Bloomington's corporate limits, is going to be dispersed. And what I am hearing is that perhaps there may be a increase in number of campers who have taken up space in our corporate limits near Sugar Creek along Main Street. And I just want to put a point out there that, you know, there's a book that I'm going to recite the title. So I'm not coming up with this on my own. But homelessness is a housing problem. Homelessness is a housing problem. We need to get housing first. And so as we have the lingering and evolving tent encampments, we really need to think about additional temporary safe shelter and then enacting programs that allow those shelter residents to move into a more supportive permanent housing. We do have dollars in this community earmarked for mental health program funding. We need to unlock that funding to help with this aspect of the housing crisis in our community. Thank you.
Ms. Smith?
In an effort to share more uplifting news, it may have passed notice that it was announced this week that the skate park for Normal is going to begin its demolition. It was scheduled to start today, and the new skate park is scheduled to be completed by the end of the calendar year, if I read the announcement correctly. But this is the culmination of the input from some really involved skaters in our community. It's a very popular park. It's more than 20 years old. And the public meeting that solicited feedback from participants and concerned residents had some of the highest participation rates I'd ever seen in this kind of meeting. And kudos to the Parks Department for their efforts to reach out to these individuals in media that they used, because the participation rate was so high. So I look forward to seeing what the new park is like, and that is beginning today.
Just a couple of comments that I have on this, and some of it ties to our public comments that were happening. I just want to reassure everyone that the police have what happened this weekend as a high, very, very high priority, if not the high priority, to get the individual or individuals responsible to be identified and take the appropriate actions. And that we are very concerned. There's a lot of shock and outrage in this community that something like that at a youth event could happen in Bloomington Normal. People are just shocked as they can be about that. And to assure you, we will be taking steps on that. We will be addressing that, and we're going to be addressing it very seriously. Some of the things that were suggested tonight are actually already on our list of do we do this or how we do it. But as Mr. McCarthy, I think, said, that we need to be thorough and well prepared for this, and that takes some time sometimes. So I just want to reassure everyone that that is indeed happening, even as we speak. Our next meeting, 21st, is that right? We will be having a work session for the council, and we're going to have two topics at that work session, and that is gun violence in our community tied to the pop-up party that happened, the event that happened this last Friday, and we'll have a lot more information and discussing it as a council for next steps for what we can do as a council and as a community, and what we can do legally to step this up so that this doesn't happen again. And the second thing, incidentally, we'll be talking about is Airbnb regulations. We feel it's time to have a public conversation about that, and so we'll be discussing that as well as at our next meeting. During a work session, that'll be probably in the 5:30 range, wouldn't you think? Yes. Yeah. So that'll be on October 21st. And with that, a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Ms. Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Byers?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mayor Coos?
Aye, we are adjourned. Thank you. Yeah, I forgot.